Hey friends, so continuing discussing our yamas and our niyamas. Today we're going to talk about the fourth of the niyamas, and this is Svadhyaya. Svadhyaya. This is a Sanskrit word that translates roughly to self-study, right? And if we can really understand this niyama, if we can embrace it, if we can apply it to our everyday lives throughout the course of our day, it can be an immense tool for growth, for transformation. But it can also, I think, keep us out of a lot of trouble that we tend to drum up for ourselves. And I think it's very useful when talking about Svadhyaya to first understand that we all have different worldviews, right? We all come from different backgrounds, different families or cultures. We've got different belief systems. We've all had different sets of experiences, both good and challenging, right, that have molded us into the people that we are today, right? Put all that stuff together and it forms the lens through which we see the world, through which we see each other, and through which we see each other's actions, right? If there are 10 different people in a room, there's also 10 different representations of that room, right? Because we're all going to see the room and the other 9 people in it a little bit differently depending on our background, right? And I think, it's important to realize that all of our shoulds, all of our musts, all of our rights and wrongs, they might be different than those of our neighbors because we've all had different lives, right? And if we can just understand this and remember this when we're interacting with each other, it may allow us to have a little bit more empathy towards one another. It may allow us to form somehow a deeper connection. And it may allow us to do these things even if we don't necessarily agree with each other, right? Because we can then recognize that at the beginning we all start very similar and then are molded through the things that happen in our lives, right? Maybe we can have a little more empathy for each other, remembering that fact. I think maybe one of the most important aspects of Svadhyaya, of self-study, is starting to understand the reasons why, we do the things that we do, right? The why behind our actions. And I think at this point I should just make a disclaimer that I really love German chocolate cake. And so in no way is what I'm about to say an indication that you should stop eating German chocolate cake. In fact, I would invite all of you to go out and buy the best piece of German chocolate cake you can find. Or if German chocolate cake isn't your thing, go get your favorite comfort sweet, right? Comfort food, whatever that may be. And bring it home and pause for a moment and then just sit with it, right? Just be with it. Just look at it and appreciate it and be with it. And then ask yourself what you actually want from that piece of German chocolate cake or whatever it is. What do you actually want from it? Maybe you just want to eat some cake and that's cool, and then by all means go for it. But maybe there's something more that you're expecting to get from it, right? Maybe there was some childhood experience you had with German chocolate cake that was really, really good, and you're really trying to recreate that every time you go and eat German chocolate cake, right? Which probably can't happen. Or maybe you don't actually want a piece of German chocolate cake. Maybe what you really want is a hug, right? But German chocolate cake happens to be your go-to when you're feeling that way, right? Svadhyaya can help us start to learn what's underneath those actions. Another one that's big in our society is and this has happened with me, reaching for that 4th beer, right? Or glass of wine, or insert your vice here, right? Why are we doing that? What is it we want? Maybe we really, really like the beer and we're going to drink it. That's cool. Maybe the vibe is you're hanging out with your friends and right on. Or maybe you're actually looking for something else, like a deeper human connection, right? And so you're going for that next beer, and that beer will never give you that deeper human connection, right? Or maybe you've got some things beneath the surface that you aren't ready or you don't know how to deal with, and that 4th beer is helping you push it to the side for now, right? Svadhyaya can teach us a lot about German chocolate cake and about 4th beers, right? Because by peeling back the layers one by one to understand the reasons behind the things that we do, right? With each layer, it becomes a little bit clearer and a little bit clearer. And this can be a painful process, a difficult and messy process, right? Because we accumulate a lot of muck in our lives and it tends to sink to the bottom, right? But by clearing that up, it's also very liberating. And ultimately, it's going to alleviate a lot of suffering in our lives and in the lives of those around us as well. So this is the power of Svadhyaya, of pausing and starting to get curious and peel back the layers behind the reasons why we do the things that we do, right? So play around with that. As an intention for your physical asana class this week, I would invite you to start to really get curious about your own body, right? Start to be like an investigator about your own body as though you were stepping into it for the very first time, right? So as you go into poses, pay attention to, as you flex certain muscles and engage different muscles, what that does to the pose. Start to pay attention to all the little stabilizer muscles, like in the ankle, for example, that you don't maybe normally pay attention to, or the transitions between the poses, right? You can also start to look at what happens mentally when you're doing a physical practice. If you're asked to hold a challenging asana pose, for example, what happens in your mind? Where does your head go immediately, right? Or if an instructor gives you the option to intensify a pose or to make it more restful, different kinds of modifications, what's your go-to? What do you normally go to? Do you always go intense? Do you always go less intense? And then why do you do that, right? And it's not a time for judgment, right? But just to get curious so that you can start to understand what your habits, what your tendencies are, and then you can start asking why, right? And assess from there. So this is Svadhyaya. It's a very useful, very, very powerful niyama. I'd invite you to play around with it. Next week, we are going to talk about Ishvara Pranidhana, which is the final of the Yamas and the Niyamas, right? And this is kind of a surrender to a greater power, right? Surrendering the fruits of your actions, which will be an interesting discussion. So next week, 5:30 at Palm and Pine. Hope to see you guys there. Have a good week.